coming out and tuning in to House of ReAwakening Mind as we strive to be a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Please note, the views, opinions, and services expressed or offered by guest lecturers are those of the lecturers and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of House of ReAwakening Minds. A few housekeeping rules. Please silence your cell phones or put them on mute if you're not turning them off, on altogether. There will be no audio or videotaping, please. And the restroom is to the right. And please walk across the rear, if you will, and not in front of the camera. With that, we thank you so much, and we welcome National Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey. Let's receive him.
Tonight's subject matter is the vital aspects involving jurisdiction. One of the things that I recognize over the years, and it's vital for our people to get clear, you know, like when we go over some aspects of law and some aspects of our lives, whether you're dealing with economics, anything social, trade, buying and selling, etc., judicial actions in particular, you're dealing with jurisdiction. And one of the things that we recognize is particularly, you know, like sometimes questions come up involving ourselves in relationship to others, in relationship to a judicial action, in relationship to a judicial action, past or present, you're dealing with jurisdiction. And many of the questions that people have and that they may not be clear on, it is often because they're not clear on jurisdiction. You know, like you can go over certain subject matters that we do, past tense, and fundamentally it's direct, and you may explain it, you may go around it, you know, give them reference points, and people still don't get it or they're not clear. It is probably because they don't understand these areas of jurisdiction. And this is one of the reasons why I'm going over this tonight. And we're going to interchange and take notes and feel free to ask questions because it's vitally important. I'm going to go over fundamentally these things and then we'll go into detail. Is that all right? All right. Now, take notes if you got it. Yeah. Now, jurisdiction is a word and is a term of large and comprehensive importance, or clear, and embraces every kind of judicial action. Get grounded in that. I'm going to repeat it so that you're grounded in it. Jurisdiction is a term of large and comprehensive import, i.e. importance, and embraces every kind of judicial action. Are we clear? Clear. One of the things that I recognize over the years with our people, it never dawns on them to challenge jurisdiction, to study jurisdiction, to understand the rules of jurisdiction, and it has a lot to do with sometimes the injuries that occur to our people in judicial processes, in pseudo courts, etc. When, as an example, as the people become conscious and they start trying to find methods and means to protect their property, their beings, their natural beings, their children, all of these things deal with jurisdiction. And write this down. Your fundamentals of jurisdiction in relationship to the power to act, the capacity act to act, the authority, delegated authority to judge, to make judgment, and to render a judgment is jurisdiction. Are we clear? So on one part you have in personam jurisdiction, and basically you may have subject matter here first, if you please, but then there's subject matter jurisdiction and territorial jurisdiction. In personam jurisdiction has to do with whether a process, a judicial process, has, or persons who are interchanging with you, the being, has the authority or the right to even exercise an alleged authority over your being. Are we clear? That's in personam jurisdiction. Are we clear? Subject matter jurisdiction is whatever category or classification that the judicial action involves, whether it's crime, whether it's civil, whether it's an estate, whether it's your children, whether it's your property, whether it's some contract that you may be in or allegedly be in. All of these things concern jurisdiction. Are we clear? That would be subject matter, covering whatever subject that you may bring up. This is why it's comprehensive, it's broad. It involves every form and every type of judicial action. Are we clear? So our people need to get grounded in jurisdiction. Again, and I can't repeat it enough. Often we get injured for not knowing about jurisdiction or even questioning jurisdiction. Now, in your relationships with others, that should always be the first thing that is your concern. Are we clear? Then you have territorial jurisdiction. Now, territorial jurisdiction involves what you call the aggregate of the territorial land or nation state. Are we clear? So you got land jurisdiction, sea jurisdiction, air jurisdiction too. These are other jurisdictions. All of these things relate. All right? So we want to also look at what? Land, sea, and air jurisdiction. And when you look at this and you recognize things that we deal with every day, you know that these things usually are not on the lips and the conversation of our people. And yet it involves almost everything they do every day in their lives. Whether they're using a credit card, or a pseudo driver's license, misplaced, some kind of mortgage, some kind of rental instrument, or a claim that someone may make on yourself or your estate. All of this involves jurisdiction. We need to be very grounded in jurisdiction. And a lot of times when we're dealing with different subject matters with people, the issue of jurisdiction is always there, but often you don't see or you don't hear them talking into the areas of jurisdiction, which is probably one of the reasons why some things that our people need to be comprehensive in or competent in that they're weak in. In other words, they're thinking logical, but it doesn't dawn on them that everything involves jurisdiction. I can't emphasize that enough. Can't emphasize it enough. Now, again, one of the problems that we have, and I was actually talking to, I think it was, I'm not sure whether it was a German or Polish man. Anyway, when I was in Chicago, guy down at the desk was asking Brother Bruce about his status. You know, I was coming down the elevator, leaving my room, and we had a long conversation. And he pulled me over there, and we talked some more. As a matter of fact, he was so fired up. You know, he left his desk, came outside, when we was trying to get in the car, he asked him for numbers and stuff. But anyway, it's subject matter of jurisdiction, because what he was asking about the feds and et cetera to Bruce, where is he from? That means territorial. All right. Now, I think the guy was Polish. I think he was German or Polish. Anyway, I think it was Polish. And he was, honestly curious. And of course, he gave him a quick rundown of the history here, etc. And he said, "Oh, you're all the Indians." And it's in India, and go on and on and on. Now, again, that would deal with territorial jurisdiction. There's an assumption. And I want you to recognize why certain brands are used by social engineers, like when they keep promoting Black, Indian, and things like that, things that actually have no ground or foundation with us, but yet our people have accepted those terms. A misplacement of territorial jurisdiction actually changes your status or right of claim, or right of right. These little subtleties that our people don't take serious are very, very serious. This is why other nationals or people who are nationalized, sometimes they need to be clear on these things, because they could explain things to people who are becoming conscious. And therefore people, when you say someone's conscious, that comes in degrees. And what I've discovered is that as I've traveled the country, and I've talked to a lot of Moorish Americans in different temples and in different areas. And one thing I discovered, as far as jurisprudence is concerned, many of them are weak. They're very strong in parroting. Parroting the questionnaire, parroting the Holy Quran, and saying no jolly every 5 minutes. But when it comes to the jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, the aggregate territorial jurisdiction of the Moroccan Empire, you'll find that they're often confused between what you will call subordinate breakdowns of provinces, territories, empire, kingdoms. They have difficulty distinguishing. And they don't know or understand stages of subordination, or what you will call the breakdown of territorial operations. But they're very vital, very, very vital. One of the ways that the European colonists have been stealing people's estates is by claiming to be American, and no one challenges them. Now, if you didn't know what they're doing, they're attaching themselves to the land. And then making a claim of territorial jurisdiction, which implies that they have some sovereign right to act. Now, when you train people for generations and they think it's innocent because they don't understand jurisdiction, which you already know, many of our people in communicating with Europeans that operate at North America will casually call them white man, not knowing that that's actually a sovereign jurisdiction. You know what I mean? Even after they're told, they still practice it. Not knowing, then when the Europeans exercise the power that comes with that, then our people out of ignorance call them racist. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Because they're taking a power, authoritative position on the land and in matters that involve the land and the states, and then with the people. So they see, because if you let them get away with making a territorial jurisdictional claim and you don't challenge them, the rest of it kind of falls in place. This is why the Europeans practice connotative linguistics with our people and keep promoting that the only difference is people's complexion. No, they're making a claim against your estate. And they pretty much succeeded in doing that with our own people's help. Now, when our people, out of unfortunate ignorance, not a negative ignorance, ignorance or lack of knowledge, and a lack of basic geography, of bloodline and pedigree, they never think to challenge these things. When the European calls them Negro, Black, they know they ain't that, but it never dawns on them to challenge it or dismiss it. And when they start making statements and then will interject Black people, white people, and then keep on moving, the people don't challenge them, they don't know that they just claim jurisdiction of person, territory, and subject matter. And it's dangerous. You know, but because they don't challenge, you know, I see a few Moors will, indicates that they really don't understand the importance of jurisdiction. They really don't. And it's been used against us over and over and over again. And I think a lot of times when Moors who are national, you know, conscious, you got Moors who are unconscious, they'll call themselves Blacks and Black Indians and whatever this week they're into, you know, Negro monkey, whatever. You know, because they don't know better. They've been trained, you know. But they don't know the importance that when you misclassify a living being as far as pedigree, you just sold their estate. And our people think it's just a grammatical error or a grammatical slur. And often, and those of us who are older know that maybe 4 generations ago, if you called our people Black, you had to fight. Now they think it's a term of endearment of the Kabbalistic Hotepness of Africa and embrace it, not knowing that in law, they just gave up their birthright. Just by agreeing to be Black. And it may seem to be innocent or minor, but guess what? Europeans seize upon it. You know, and so a lot of the different questions that have been presented to us over the years, and particularly since the last couple of years, we've been pushing the reactivation and restoration of consular court, which is the Article 3 proper jurisdiction for diversity of nationality. That is the Article 3 court for diversity of nationality. The absence of it being in operation has allowed them to enforce the 14th Amendment and Christian Black codes on our people. Legally, actually legally, not lawfully, but legally. And it is absolutely that serious. You know, so that's another reason why I'm going into this, because I recognize when you start analyzing the kind of questions that come to you around the country, and some from outside the country, because you have a lot of nationals come here. You know, we get calls from Japan, from Germany, a lot from Germany, Honduras, Jamaica, Borican, Belize, Ecuador, Denmark. I'm talking about where these things have come up in subject matter. There's other, you know, well, I've talked to people from around the world, but as far as the subject matter of some people being concerned about the green cards and what is the considerations, you know, because as Moors of the North have become more and more conscious, other nationals are asking questions along that line, you know, because it's getting that strong, or the energy is projecting that strong around the world. And so, and by interchanging with different people, and particularly with people local, you know, in the different territories that we deal with, you start seeing patterns. And then you can find people are very astute in different subject matters, and different questions that will arise at different times. You don't think of it immediately because you're usually addressing the questions at the moment. And it hit me again, because I dealt with this years ago, you know, these people really don't understand jurisdiction. Because if they understood jurisdiction, a third of most of the questions that people ask would no longer be in the front. I mean, and then again, a lot of times when our people are going through some legal process, questions they'll ask, and it totally involves jurisdiction in personam, subject matter, and territorial, and yet it never dawns on them to address either one of them. Now, keep in mind, when you're dealing in a judicial process, any right not claimed is considered waived. So, this is where sometimes a loose term, you hear people say the term loosely, if you don't know your rights, you don't have your rights. But they also need to understand this. The Europeans operating under the black codes at North America seized those opportunities because they're colonists, because they're exploiting, meaning that they will seize every opportunity where you don't exercise a right to claim that right, because that's their missionary work. Their missionary work is conquest and gentrification, which is really a form of genocide, if you get the point. And in every case, every foreclosure that ever took place in North America is predicated on subject matter jurisdiction, in personam jurisdiction, and territorial jurisdiction. Now, when you're talking to a lot of people about when they're gentrifying targeted communities and they get into foreclosures and they start talking about payments and things like that, and when they called an agent, they did this, that, or the other, 9 times out of 10, these areas never come into the conversation. And when the being is not aware of these things, more than likely if they're on their own, they're going to lose. Almost a guarantee. And again, re-emphasizing, this is just one of the issues of why I'm going with this tonight. And I'm going to tie it into some other things so that you can understand the relationship. I'm going to go on a brief because when I went to Chicago, I've been to Chicago in the last couple months twice. Now, and I'm getting ready to go to Indiana in September. Because as soon as I go someplace, then other people start calling me. And there's a lot of young brothers from different organizations, from church, from mosque, a lot of people coming from the churches. Mosque, from Israelites, Hebrew Israelites. And I know part of it is when you understand the politics, the reality of the politics, you know that after people start having certain experiences and they start losing homes and cars and their bank accounts start getting seized and frozen, after a while they start recognizing that their beliefs aren't fixing anything. It's kind of difficult, and then after they get over their egos, they'll come to people who know. And I find a lot of people do that, and sometimes they'll do it in a roundabout way because they're kind of ashamed, their pride a little bit. But the doo-doos hit the fan, if you get the point. And when you understand the politics, you start preparing yourself. When you don't, you usually get blindsided. And usually by our people being trained, and I'm not, criticizing anybody for whatever belief they may have. But once you get into true scholarship and true historical studies of religion, you know that beliefs are really for social solace. The priests themselves who promote beliefs don't have beliefs. They deal with knowledge in their private lives. They promote the beliefs because that's their income against the people who won't read or really aren't willing to handle reality. However, in the real politics of the world, when you have a targeted people who are being exploited, things come in certain stages that is dangerous for people not to be aware of. Because many of our people, I find, in these last few years have been blindsided, not understanding that the Unam Sanctam operations has stages, if you understand, meaning that they're accelerating certain things whether the people are conscious or not. And then their actions, that means the owners of the United States Service Corporation company that our people have been trained is the country, which it is not. They have pressures being put on them from around the world with T-bonds that nations of the world are dumping. So they have to make certain moves to try to convert their private debt that appears to be public onto the heirs of the estate who they've been sucking on since the commercial mercenary war that's been known as the Civil War. Such persons are known as Negroes, blacks, coloreds, African Americans, etc., essentially descendants of the Moors, the true people of the land, who don't know, most of them, that the U.S. T-bonds have been constructed on our backs since what you call the Civil War. That has been the foundation of the United States Service Corporation Company's economics. And then upon them, they built derivatives and compounded those derivatives, and they sold them around the world as T-bonds, treasury bonds. What has happened, like any other fiat system, after a certain amount of derivatives, it starts eating itself up, if you get the point. And usually, fiat, when you study world history and world politics, fiat systems usually average around 27 to 30 years, and they collapse. The fiat system of the private commercial papers of the Jesuit order via the Federal Reserve, Knights Templars, Knights of Columbus, etc., Thule Society, that's because that's really what it is. Registered, with its headquarters on Fleet Street in England, answering to the Pope. And of course, the military operations is Washington, D.C. Now, what I just said, you know that the average person, most of our people, is not, if you said that to most of our people, they wouldn't know what the swell you're talking about. Yet in synopsis, that is the facts, that is the politics. Now, because our people have been pretty much educationally disarmed, nationally disarmed, and have no arms to defend themselves, they're just like bleeding rabbits running through the field with wolves on the prowl. And they've been claiming racism and prejudice because they were told that, but they're actually being genocided. And our people have been hiding behind their belief systems to feel secure. They have not been secure, but it's like a mental elixir. Our people have, this is why when you talk to most of our people, they even identify themselves by their beliefs, not by their pedigree. And it never dawns on them that other humans don't identify themselves by their beliefs. They identify by their pedigree. They may have belief systems, but they're identified by their bloodline and their pedigree, their nationality. Our people have been trained to identify by their beliefs, like you ask them, what's your identity? I'm Baptist, I'm Muslim, I'm Methodist, Episcopalian. Civilized people know those are solid systems. They honor their mothers and fathers. They say, I'm Nigerian. Now, my religion is Islam, or it might be Buddhist, or it might be Confucius. Same thing with Chinese, etc., and other nationals. And what you find that our people, in their everyday casual affairs, it never even dawns on them in their language that they are denationalizing themselves because they've been trained that way. But they don't understand that by doing that, they actually have no right of estate. It never dawned on them. And people who know, even amongst our own, don't tell them, because often most of the people of Asiatic African descent that have what you call comfortable jobs and under the U.S. corporation operations, 90% of them are either Eastern Stars or Masons. Very rarely will they be in a power position and not be a Mason this day, because it doesn't happen. Because they've got to know what's really up, not what you believe that's up. And logically, people in any secret society is not going to spill the beans on what they really know, because it would upset the apple cart. At the same time, when they're members of these different orders, they're pledged anyway. And they put their own economic and physical life on the line if they talk too much anyway. So, they find that secondary after getting degrees, if you get the point. And every time they get another degree, they take another one. And this is why you'll see Masons and Eastern Stars, Daughters of the American Revolution, and others, and Shriners, wearing the Moorish fez, and never mention that these people are Moors. All of their lodges have Moorish names. All of their lodges are feminine, mother, in harmony with the true culture of the planet. And of course, you already know, while most of these reverends are 32 and 33 degree Masons, they ain't saying that stuff across that pulpit. Number one, their pockets will no longer be lined. And number two, the same believers might throw him out on his head, accusing him of having a devil. The point. But they'll take care of him, buy him a passage, a parish, 2 or 3 cars, and the half the choir of sisters will be servicing them, besides the chicken, and all that stuff, married or not, they do that. And everybody knows it, but no one admits it. That's how the game been running. However, all of that paradigm, by virtue of the pressures that have been put on the Vatican, the P2 Masons, Queen of England, etc., and then that subordinate comes down to the subordinate board of directors that our people here think is their Congress. They're the board of directors for the U.S. corporation company. And so they're under political pressures from around the world that cannot be ignored. And so by our people not being up on the politics, for the most part, they don't know that these people are liquidating our estates as fast as they can. So any way that they can attack your estate, whether it's your house and an inheritance, savings, any bonds that you have, any offshore, anything that you have, they're going after it. And people who really don't know nationality and don't know jurisprudence, no matter how believer they are, deep they are in their beliefs, they're going to get smashed. And a lot of them feel it, but they don't know where to go with it, if you get the point. They feel in their heart and they know something's wrong, seriously wrong. And they've been trained to lean on their beliefs. Well, it's going to fail them. It's not wrong with the beliefs, it's just that it's been misrepresented for generations. And it's sort of like when you look at Septuaginta in the Bible, when it says, my people are destroyed by the day for lack of knowledge. And yet at the same time, they go to these places and they look for beliefs when they're destroyed for lack of knowledge. Meaning that they will parrot these things and not absorb what them same books that they say they believe in are really telling them. In other words, their practice is really not harmonic with what's in their books. However, and I know that our people have developed this sense of security with their beliefs that really doesn't work, never did, but yet it is strong in our communities. And yet you see the families falling apart more and more. Relationships, if they last over 3 years, you're lucky. Children are dying younger and younger. IRS steals everything from them constantly. The corporate state always steals all inheritances from them or tax them out of it. And it never dawns on them in personal jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, and that these people in the corporate state are foreign Europeans claiming to be Americans, claiming territorial jurisdiction and going unquestioned. Then they claim to be white, which means sovereign. Then they exercise that sovereignty, and it never dawns on our people that when the members of the Whig-Moore Party took on the title of whites in 1854, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 63, Chicago, Illinois, that they were claiming your sovereign right to the land. And all of these things are known by historians. All these things are known by anybody that knows jurisprudence. And it's known by all Masons, anybody in any secret society. But it's not known by the common people who have been the food and don't know they've been the food. And they've been soothed in their suffering with race and color arguments, and that has become their political reality. However, scientifically, in fact, all that's a fraud. So again, and this is again why in these last few years we've also been promoting for the people to put their stuff, to set up a trust and put all of their stuff in trust. And I'm going to, make a synopsis of this because we went over this before, but you must understand this to understand the politics. When the popes of Rome under the Spanish Inquisition, which is the way they cover the history of, defeated the Moors and Yahudi. So we're the Moors and the Jews. We're the real Moors and Jews. Not that people claim to be Jews. As a matter of fact, the word isn't even in Jew. It's Yahudi. And the deal of it is, so we've been the target of their economics, and they came to the West, and our people keep forgetting this. One of the major points of the Spanish Inquisition and the Europeans coming into the Maghreb, or the Western Hemisphere, is to steal our gold, silver, and precious resources. And our people forgot that. And this is again why the Europeans under the Spanish Inquisition would steal the gold and create paper, fiat, and give it to the people and call it money. And after a while, the people have been trained like monkeys to think that they have money when it's actually private commercial paper, no value whatsoever. And so they have to maintain the banking system, and these instruments have to come to the banking system in order to be given artificial value. If it didn't, it would have no value whatsoever. And that also allowed them to systematically drain the resources of the people through taxation that is really a tithe system, a Roman tax. So they call it tax, and the people never think it's tithe. And after a while they forgot, and this is the major thing, they forgot that them Europeans are colonists. And of course that's dangerous. And so, thank you. Now, in the matter of in personam jurisdiction, I want to make some other points with you too. And understanding that jurisdiction involves every kind and every type of judicial action, matters nowhere where it goes. It carries import in every aspect of every economic transaction, every estate transaction, every movement on the street, every type of license, every type of accounting, every type of claim, every type of charge, every type of discharge, every type of set-off, you're dealing with jurisdiction. And so our people deal with these things every day, so they need to be clear on jurisdiction. Because this is, our people's lack of comprehending this is a lot of how our people are taken advantage of. How their estates are stolen, how they may go into places that they think are courts, they're not courts, and get screwed, how they pack the jails with our people, and it never dawns on them the issue of jurisdiction. I'm clear. And I'm going to emphasize this again. One of the keys that was done so that they could do this, misclassify, and then claim jurisdiction, whether in personam, subject matter, or territorial, was when Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1956 closed down Article 3 constitutional courts consular that deal with diversity of nationality. And so since the people were denationalized, the consular court existence would by default make them aware that they're out of order. That's why they shut it down. Are we clear?
Right.
Are we clear? And then when you see around like 54, 55, and 56 is when they started pushing the Negro marching leader guys, promoting the 14th Amendment. And you see within a 10-year span, all of the hotels up and down the East Coast and coming from the West Coast to the East Coast that our people had, they even had travel maps where our people could find, you know, their own hotels, our hotels, and mom and pop stores. After the civil rights guys, we have none. None. If you can count one, it's rare. And if it is, it's usually a token person that's fronting the hotel for some European. But all of the stable institutions that we used to have are done, gone. You know, now people started marching, wanting to eat in Woolworths, wanting to eat in these little restaurants, getting beat up, dogs sick on them just so they could go spend their finance. Europeans were spitting their food, serving them, stuff like that. All kinds, and they call that success. What they did is gave up their birthright. And then they pursued, you know, Negro citizenship, which actually was stock. And they thought it was an honorable identity that civil rights leaders, 90% of them were reverends. 90% of them were reverends. See, so the people believed them, not knowing that all these guys were 33-degree Masons. All of these big name Negro leader guys are 32 and 33-degree Masons. And in secret, got a holy name. When they get the 32nd degree, they get certificates and says, Assalamu alaikum. And they have a Moorish name. And they got Korans, just like the founding fathers had Korans. You know, and they go into lodges, they get their degrees, and a lot of them, you know, in secret wear their rings with Allah on it, including European so-called Jews. You know, if you ever go to some of these Masonic regalia stores where you see these so-called Ashkenazi Jews, and you ever see them come out with their sapphire rings with Allah on it, you know, so don't ever think that, you know, that what the masses think is really what's going on in the world. You know, you're under occupation. And you need to really get that clear. And a lot of the things that we talk about and a lot of things that we're doing is to counter the effects of that occupation. In doing so, in international law, that is called a rebuttal. A declaration of nationality is a rebuttal against assumed jurisdictions, whether you're dealing in personam, subject matter, or territorial. Are we clear? This is a fact of law. And again, over the years, as we've talked in different areas trying to preserve people's estates, a lot of questions come up as we talked about earlier. You see that their concepts aren't exactly clear. This is again why we reinstituted activity with the restoration of the consular court. Because with the existence of the Article 3 court, they cannot proceed with the being or the subject without establishing everyone's nationality for the record. At that point, it becomes clear that they're foreigners. And you know they're not going to promote that. However, we are the people of the land, and it's also our obligation by Constitution and treaty to enforce the Constitution and treaty. And logically, the consular court is the Article 3 court that deals with our matters up until 56. And by this time, most of our people forgot all about that. They were busy trying to be Negro citizens and not understanding that they were abandoning the platform that was in place to protect their rights. They came into the 14th Amendment thinking they were getting rights. They were actually abandoning rights. And it's unfortunate, but it's a done deed. And we need to really understand that, because what I'm speaking of is not mere opinion. I'm talking the facts. I'm talking the absolute facts. But I'm wanting for you to connect the dots so that other questions that may come up, you'll answer them yourselves. And also, it will give you or assist you in aiding others who may not comprehend what nationality is all about. Because this is what I also recognize, over the years. Many conscious Moors that have been in the temples for years do not understand the legal and lawful significance of their nationality. They think it's just a historical fact and a correction of the record. And they assume that they're out of the European jurisdiction without even understanding what jurisdiction is. One of the things that occurs too when you see our people, if you travel this country and you see certain practices that take place in prisons, you'll see a lot of our people, once they get into prison and stuff like that, will convert to Islam or will convert back to Judaism, trying to relate back to in their actions, they're attacking jurisdiction. But most of them, if you ask them, they wouldn't even know that this is really what they're doing. This is what they're attempting to do. Because they think that the belief takes them out of the European jurisdiction, because that's their training. No, the nationality takes them out of the jurisdiction. Your beliefs are secondary. They're exactly that, beliefs and law. It's your pedigree. Meaning that, as an example, with some of the negotiations that are going on as we speak, because we were having a conversation earlier, and myself, Brother Wayne, and Sister Nana, and we were in the conversation of bringing up Trump, Donald Trump, etc. And I was expressing the real politics, how to look at it, and you're dealing with jurisdiction. Now, when he met with Putin, he's dealing with Vladimir Putin, but he's dealing with a Russian. But he's a representative for the United States Service Corporation. He ain't mentioning his nationality. Are we clear? You need to understand with the Article 3 set up or restored, all of those things are going to come to the front. And one of the things that one of the Europeans said about Trump recently, when someone had said to him, mentioned to him, you're the president of the United States, he said, I'm the president of the Republic. And he meant that. So that means part of Trump's mission is the restoration of the Republic. And you already know that's because the United States Service Corporation is dead. Meaning it has died. And so, even when Mr. Trump was put in that office, his assignment was already set. It really was already set. All what appears to be election was a farce. Now what you have, the problem that they have is that you have military and some other secret orders around the world that's behind Trump, which has much to do why they couldn't eliminate him as they desired to do, and still desire to do. So they have essentially what's going on with them is essentially, in fact, civil war that's actually going on. It's on a low key, meaning that it's not in the public's eye, but it's been going on for a while. It's going to be quite difficult for them to keep it kind of covered up, because it's, it keeps rising to the surface. It hasn't broken through because none of the mainstream press will tell any of the real politics, because they're all, Jesuit controlled. However, that doesn't remove the fact that the rest of the civilized world is dumping them treasury bonds, irregardless of what's going on here. So the politics of what pressures Donald Trump is actually dealing with, that these people who don't understand the politics don't really understand, it will never coincide with what they think they know. If you understand what I'm saying. So what he has to deal with is stopping what they would call the bleeding. Because the U.S. corporation company has been bleeding North America for, since the imposition operations, and particularly since late 1871. And it's gotten so bad that everything's going to collapse. So by default, someone had to be put in there to do something. So Obama was placed in there to start the ball rolling. And then Trump behind him, if you would. Irregardless of what they tell you, I'm telling you what the real politics are. They were already set for that office. I don't care who was running. However, let's get back to this point. This is again why we've been encouraging Moors to do a trust and telling them to study trust law and get grounded. And the other deal, because there's so many dirty Moors amongst us selling packages and taking advantage of our people that are trying to fix things, this is why we ourselves don't necessarily try to do the service for the people. We're trying to get them to take responsibility. Because you've got a lot of self-promoting people around that's, promising you to do this, that, or the other. But they can't do anything for you except inform you, if you get the point. This is the real politics. Every man, every woman, and every child must confess their wrong. And so what we're trying to do the best that we can here at the House of ReAwakening Minds is bring such information and deal with such subject matters that starts gearing our people back to self-responsibility. And in conjunction with that self-responsibility to connect with other people that are doing the same thing. And then in what you call your local activities, take people of like mind who are actually studying, not believing, studying, and that have some demonstrational moral and ethical compass, and then build, then restore some things. But so many of our people have been corrupted by the training under the U.S. corporation that you will still find so many of them that are dirty or that are in the movement for the finance and not for the cause. And while a workman is worthy of his hire, however, robbery has been the stretch under the guise of doing national things, if you get the point. And so this is another reason why we encourage people to study so they can start taking responsibility. And so a lot of redundancy that we may do in certain areas is for that purpose. We don't want to enable people to get injured. We want to enable people to trust themselves with knowledge, not with emotionalism, if you get the point. And so when, again, this is redundant, when Eisenhower shut down consular court, that is the venue, and write this down because you must remember this. Article 3 of the Constitution for the United States is the lawful foundation for any judicial system. Are we clear? Or any court. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Clear.
If a room or building or process comes through any place or venue that claims to be a court and they do not have a certificate in the doorway and inside that says Article 3, that is not a court. And never was. That's the first thing you got to get through your head. And this is again why we're dealing with jurisdiction. Because our people assume that these places are courts, don't they? Because they're claiming the people who are running them are claiming them to be courts. They are not courts. And that must be clear. If it isn't, you're in trouble. Are we clear?
Clear.
Islam. And of course you know that we're always in trouble on that front. Islam. Now, I want you to be very clear on this. Do you know what an averment of jurisdiction is? Do you all know what an averment of jurisdiction is? All right, give her the mic. You raised your hand. Well, you didn't think you was going to give a mic. Get in the mic so we can hear you. Speak up loud.
From my understanding, an avenue of jurisdiction is basically a writ asking for them to clarify who they are, the delegation of authority order, and what classifies them to have authority or any jurisdiction over your being or the subject matter.
All right. Now let's back up. Now when you're dealing with Article 3, constitutional courts, you don't ask them anything, you demand. So even your language is going to change. And I'm saying to you, and this is again understanding and comprehending jurisdiction. Are we clear? It's very important, because if you ask, that's a submission to jurisdiction. Because a question means option, doesn't it? Demand, a fiduciary demand, you got to answer it or step out. These subtleties we must get grounded in. All right, and you must get grounded in that too, to even to satisfy what you may be doing or may choose to do, that any one of us may do in an avenue of jurisdiction. Now, keep this in mind, you all, and take note. Jurisdiction can be challenged at any time. I repeat, jurisdiction can be challenged at any time. Preceding an action or claim, during an action or claim, or even after the fact of a rendering of a judgment in an action or claim, including if a person was put in prison, jurisdiction still can be challenged. Are we clear? These things are important because it is absolutely necessary for us to be clear on that, because we need to use it more than anyone else, because we've been the target more than anyone else. Are we clear? Now, again, if one is not aware of the aspects of impersonal jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, logically, you don't introduce this into your conversation or into your writs or writings. Failure to do that has cost us dearly. Are we clear? Now, let me say this, because a lot of people aren't clear on this. You know, like when they have claims in venues that they claim to be a court, and they're not Article 3s. There hasn't been any Article 3 courts operating at North America since about 1789, since George was put in office, and definitely since 1871. Are we clear? Now, when you officially interject in an action, an avenue of jurisdiction, you don't ask. Under the rule of discovery, you demand that they produce. And you make points. You don't necessarily run it all in the paragraph. You make points. Say A, B, or 1, space 2, space 3, and each issue that you're challenging for discovery, name it, make it clear. Are we clear? In an action, whereas some persons using the corporate state make a claim against you, the living being, that's a violation. Did you know that? When they say the state versus, and then they name you, the dead can't challenge the living. Are we clear? A corpse, a corporation is a dead instrument. Can you question the state? It's an abstract. They've been using, those are called ex parte actions. They've been using ex parte actions to screw our people and to private jails, POW camps with our people, and our people actually think they're in public prisons and jails under the Constitution, and they're actually being trafficked, human trafficking, under foreign corporations with foreign Europeans falsely claiming to be Americans, claiming territorial jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, and thus in personam jurisdiction over a lot of living people who they misclassify as dead, which is why the 14th Amendment was put in place and the consular courts were shut down. I'm telling you factually what's going on. Are we clear?
Right.
If you comprehend what we have just talked about in this last hour or so, that should give you grounds to formulate and structure questions that you would present in any action that's directed towards you competently. Failure to do so would be considered a waiver. And logically, if you're not conscious of it, you don't do it. And it's still considered a waiver. And then they proceed in personam jurisdiction and in subject matter jurisdiction because it has not been challenged. Are we clear? So, when there's a jurisdictional claim, they have to do what? Deal with the being before them. What has allowed them to bypass this, and immediately almost every case that operates in North America in these places, which are actually private tribunals that they've been calling courts, they immediately go into subject matter jurisdiction. Immediately, in almost every instance. Does anyone have an idea why they do that and how they're able to do that? Give them the mic. Bring the mic. It's on.
It's on. I would say that the individual has volunteered.
Don't call them individual.
The national has volunteered.
That would be called voluntary
Waiver.
service. A waiver is a voluntary action. And so you see, forced servitude, involuntary servitude is unlawful. Voluntary servitude is an assumed contract. And so if you don't exercise your right and duty, listen to what I'm saying to you, your right and duty to enforce the treaty and the Constitution, you waive them. At that time, you're already subject, so therefore they don't have to deal with in personam jurisdiction. This is another reason they shut down the consular court, because nationality never comes to the floor. And therefore there is no diversity that you assume to be their property under the 14th Amendment. See how simple that is? What appears to be innocent is calculated, was calculated. And again, I want to remind you all, how many of you have read Prophet Oduali's Divine Warning by the Prophet for the Nations? Raise your hand, please. You haven't read that? Oh, all right. At the very heart of the Moorish movement is the enforcement of that Constitution. Now, when you go into the Moorish Science Temple of America, Moorish Temple of Science, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Old Canaanite Temple, and you get a nationality card, that nationality card in law, is a stated proclamation of arrogant of jurisdiction, diversity of nationality. That's exactly what that nationality card is. Again, I'm going to repeat. When you get a nationality card from the Moorish Science Temple of America or any other organized Moorish group or organized body politic, because the nationality is free, it's your birthright. Meaning that no organization, no club, no order can own that. They can inform you of that, they can't own it. It's a birthright. Are we clear? What that instrument is, in its factual, lawful, and legal nature, is a declaratory proclamation of abridgment of jurisdiction over person, and a stated fact for the public record of diversity of nationality. Therefore, the proper platform and venue for any issue of diversity of nationality to be dealt with is Article 3, Court Consular. Logically, with the ministers and ambassadors all in place. Now do you see why they shut down consular courts? It was an act of denationalization. Now, as a reminder to you, and you already know when you start bringing up issues, because I did Lesson Book 14, years ago for that purpose, and I skipped the book because I already knew that we had conversals amongst us. When you study the history, the real politics, you recognize that one of our major problems as a people is conversals amongst us. The rest of the world refer to them as black people or traitors. That's how the rest of the world looks at people in the North who call themselves blacks and Negroes. They're looked at as traitors. The rest of the world call them diverse conversos, including the Europeans refer to them as conversos. And usually the conversos are the ones that the Europeans choose or assign them to leadership positions in our communities. They call them black leader guys, but usually civil rights leaders, which means 14th Amendment propagators. It's actually designed to steal your birthright. But usually they're reverends, so the people out of blindness usually accept them blindly or clear, not understanding that they're being set up. And so the deal is, because our people's lack of knowledge of jurisprudence, as soon as someone says religion, our people think that these people are innocent and goodly and stuff like that. And so this has made our people put their guard down and have actually made them subject under the Christian black codes and under the 14th Amendment courts, the dead, thinking that they were getting some kind of citizens' rights. All clear? And you already know the images that a lot of these so-called black leader, civil rights leaders have among the people. A very honorable image. However, they themselves been 32 and 33 Masons by the Moorish fez and go to a lodge with a Moorish name and then come out and promote the 14th Amendment against their own people that actually steals their birthright. All in the name of Jesus and things that really, black and Allah, etc. And as soon as they call these people black, they put them into the 14th Amendment. And this is again why it's kind of uncomfortable for a lot of people when they really begin to understand this information, that a lot of people that they trusted are not to be trusted. But if they don't have a background in jurisprudence, it never dawns on them that these people are actually overseers. The other thing that I want you to recognize, if anyone have, or just immediately available, now if you have available the Constitution for the United States, and can you read and give your brother Mike, the mic that's on the table, and read Article 3 of that Constitution very clearly. Stand up, please. Brother Dominic, Islam.
Article 3
of the Constitution for the United States.
of the Constitution of the United
States.
Section 1. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court.
Read it slower and in sharp diction.
Okay. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Congress they from time to time ordain and establish. The judges above both of the supreme and inferior courts shall hold their offices during good behavior, and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. Section 2. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States, and treaties made or which shall be made under their authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls, to all cases of admiralty in maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state or the citizens thereof, and foreign states, citizens or subjects.
All right, hold right there. Now, at the heart of the Moorish movement is the enforcement of that Constitution, isn't it? That's Article 3, isn't it? Does it say consul and ministers and ambassadors? Now, you see why when we brought up the issue of consular court, it made a lot of people who are really operating as traitors among us. It brought them out of the woodwork because they couldn't hide, because they're forced to take a position. And they will argue everything but that, won't they? Won't they? And they'll never go to the divine warning and then go to Article 3. They'll start saying it's going to enslave these people and it's putting them on the 14th Amendment. What you've just done is just expose the traitors to the banks. Now you see why Raleigh has always had problems, and why many of our people for all of these years and many of these organizations have been struggling and struggling and struggling, and yet they have got no remedy, because the venues they've been going into are unconstitutional venues that deliberately put in place to steal their birthright. Now you understand why we command the reactivation and restoration of consular court with the people of the land, because it denies any argument that sets up diversity of nationality, which would immediately declare that they have no jurisdiction whatsoever, whether in personam, whether subject matter, and definitely not territorial. Arguments over from the door. This is why Eisenhower shut down consular court, and they emphasize or overemphasize the relinquishment of jurisdiction over the kingdom of Morocco, but not over the empire. And here we are today, suffering those things that the Prophet Raleigh warned us would take place if we did not carry out those above statements, which you'll see in that divine warning. You know, again, because I already knew we had traitors amongst us, this is why I separated Protocols of Liberty, which is 14A1, the second part, because I was doing it from my pocket, and I already knew I had enemies around me, but I studied them Raleigh very carefully. As a matter of fact, I studied them before I came into the movement officially, and this is why any one of you see that met Grand Sheik who introduced me to the Moor Science Temple. I told her before I came in, when she pressed me to get nationalized, I said, I'll tell you right now, when I come in, I'm coming in fighting. Because when I went into that prophet's literature, went in, like diving into a pool, coming from the back, I could see a lot of things, a lot of betrayals. So I didn't come into this movement with the eyes that most people come into in this movement with. I came in, It was like home to me. I felt, betrayal of him was betrayal of me. That's how I've always taken this thing. And I know you recognize that in my writings. Islam, good brother.
Very quickly, not to get too far off, but while we're here on council, can you please address the argument or the position that since we are home, since we are on our land, and this concept that we're consular court,
Say the mic.
is the concept that we're consular court is for those that are not on their land.
So if you're going to be in the court, then you're dealing with what? Diversity of parties. So who's the other party? See the illogic, see the lack of logic even in the argument. It's a diversion argument because when we brought it back up, remember this is not new with me. When we brought it back up, it called, like, anybody know about exterminating? Anybody know about exterminating?
Yeah.
Before you put down the main stuff, you got this can of primer that gets them agitated. You spray it all on the baseboards and in the basement. Then you come with the real stuff after that. What this did, this consular issue, it forced people to take position. Unbeknownst to them, because I already knew what would take place, they exposed themselves. This is why almost all of their arguments are personal. They're not dealing with facts, they're dealing with personal attacks and indirect slanders. All clear. However, therefore, I saw this stuff in 82. When I started writing, this is what I used to do. I used to when I was a child too, but as I got older, became more aware of myself. I would kind of imagine this. Like, say we're in this room, right? What I would do is I would go up and then look down, but I would look kind of like in the future. You can't tell everything, but you can, it's sort of like reading energy packages. It's almost like reading energy. It's like you absorb it. You see some things, but you absorb. It's almost like imprinting. And then you come back down and you just start setting traps. Because you already know the game. And sometimes I think it's a little unfair. I know somebody said that to me one time. One of the grand Sheik said it to me one time. I'm double Aquarius. I'm Aquarius Sun, Aquarius Rising, and a Leo Moon. So I'm looking straight across the universe for myself. For starters. That's just for starters. Now, fact is, psychic abilities are part of human nature. Some people are more attuned to it than others. Most of the people don't attune to it because belief systems block them. Belief systems are designed to shut down their psychic powers. And when I was younger, it used to get me in trouble. And I suppressed it for a while, but after I got older, I ain't trying to prove nothing. I just be me. I don't think they don't like me or not. They often don't like me. But it's like this, hey, I gotta do what I gotta do. I gotta do what my mother sent me for. But the deal is, what I'm saying to you is this. The very fact that the people are opposing consular courts at all, there is no debate. That's Article 3 court. There is no debate. It's not optional. Your opinion is dismissed. That is the supreme law of the land established. And anybody that's against it is against the Constitution, is against local duality, and against the Moorish movement. I don't care how many nationality parties they got. They're court. However, some of these people I already knew anyway, so some of these people I severed relationships with anyway, because I already knew their spirits. But the deal of it is, but they come and they go. If you get the point. Stay focused on the mission. Stay loyal to the cause. Stay focused on principle. This is why you see me over the years always tell people, don't get caught up in personalities. Do not get caught up in person. Stick with principle and principle alone. Because if you get caught up in personalities, they'll burn you. And then a lot of people that come into this movement that aren't clear get too personal with people and they knock them off before they really go on them what this is all about. You know, again, this is another reason why I've written the way I've written, because I already knew the dynamics that would take place. If you all read any of my stuff, you can see. You know, if I wrote years ago, it's like talking to you right now. You know, because that's where I saw it. You know, hopefully it does some good to help you. You know what I mean? And hopefully we will stimulate or inspire those among us all to come out and stop suppressing your psychic powers. But always stay honorable. Always stay in honor. And never use that energy to hurt anyone. Never. Never. There's also the term, because nature, she doesn't recognize personal station. And then a lot of times, if you misuse the energy, she'll shut you down. You know, so that's just a mild warning. If you get it. But anyway, so keep this in mind, and Brother Troy, keep this in mind. Even now, as Dominic just read Article 3, there is no debate. Article 3, the spell council. Now, I also want, how many of you have the divine constitutional bylaws of the Moor Science Temple of America? In a minute, I want you to get that. And then I want one of the sisters to read Act 1 of the divine constitutional bylaws. But go ahead, Dominic, I want you to.
Consul. C-O-N-S-U-L.
All right, write that down, y'all.
Consul. C-O-N-S-U-L.
All right. Now, I want you all to grab a dictionary and give it to a sister, because I want the sister to start doing some energy. Get a dictionary and I want you to read consul. You can grab one off the shelf up there, but you got them all over the place. One thing about House of ReAwakening Minds, we got some books around here. Give it to the sister and have her read consul. You can also get another one if you want to look at it yourself. We got other dictionaries, so give it to the sister.
Black's Law 4.
Yeah, stay directly in the mic so you don't lose it. Okay.
Consul, an officer of a commercial character appointed by the different states to watch over the mercantile interests of the appointing state and its subjects in foreign countries.
Oh, so that Constitution is clearly an international document, isn't it? Why do they not talk about international and national issues when they come to our people? And why no one brings up consular court? Now, understand that's the Constitution, is it not? Right? Brother Dominic read it, right? What gave Eisenhower, the German Dutchman, the authority to suspend the Constitution? None. All right, now just because he under color law suspended consular court, does that mean that We, as a people, had to follow behind them because they had Negro marching leaders dancing around talking about civil rights, be Negro citizens, 14th Amendment, which means ignore the Article 3 court, thinking that you're going to get rights, and we lost everything, and been catching hell ever since. And now that Taji guy has brought the issue up again, a lot of people that's been around us jumped out of the woodworks and started making sly personal attacks and everything. But they're caught. They're so busy trying to attack me that they didn't recognize they're attacking the prophet. And when it all boils down, it's coming out in the wash. And when the people recognize that these people are traitors, the people got to deal with them. Now what they need to do is give up their nationality cards and go back to the state where the prophet found them. And they've been talking heavy trash. And they've been confusing people that are coming on board. You see? And then the different subject matters we've been dealing with for the last couple of years has woken a lot of people up. And they're trying hard to get conscious fast and looking for sources of information. And you only have a few honorable sources that have been giving them information. So a lot of people who should have been telling them these things are a little upset with us, as if we're against the movement, because we ain't in the temple type thing, real type stuff. This is universal information. That Constitution, Drew Ali's philosophy is universal. And they keep trying to pigeonhole him and pigeonhole the people. Why were they doing that? It becomes obvious that they were doing it to undermine the goals. But it appeared innocent because they're saying that Drew Ali every 2 minutes. A distraction, paradigm. But anyone that knows long history sees through the farce. Why? Because they measure by constitutions, by treaties, by principles of contract law, and by the letter of jurisprudence. I want you to recognize, in so much as we hit on those things, how the 14th Amendment has been actually used so they could bypass their obligation to deal with each one of these points of law before they proceed in any action with any living person. And it never comes up. Why? This has been covered up with the 14th Amendment. And no one has challenged it. Therefore, they've been taking people's houses, which is subject matter jurisdiction and territorial jurisdiction, and then claim over the person's estate. Under a color of law, under a color of authority, and under a color of office, and they're really foreign Europeans pretending to be Americans, and no one has challenged them. You see how it all ties together? If a being knows that, you know what your argument is. You don't need a lawyer. He's the problem. Because they set it up in 1871. You see? That's why a lot of people really don't want you to really get clear on what nationality is, how deep it actually goes, how far-reaching it actually goes. It is entirely and totally comprehensive in all everyday economic, social, and political activities. Fact.
The act that you described covers a lot of injurious acts, grand larceny,
yes,
treason,
yes,
and fraud.
Genocide,
Genocide. As well.
yes, Now, I want you all to, we will go into it right now, I want you all to look into the International Convention on Genocide and make notes on each one of them and take them, get it printed out and take them, put them in your study folders and put them next to all of your writs as a reminder. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Now, so keep in mind, so when we're talking about an abolition of jurisdiction, you're going to go to Article 3, then you're going to go to Article 6 of that Constitution, then you go to the oath that the person who claims to be a judge and go down to the clerks and demand a copy of it and put them all together, and it'll stop every ex parte action. And we never dawned on us.
Say it again, Todd.
It'll stop all of these ex parte actions that they've been doing. Because this is what they've been getting. Y'all got this? I'm going to erase some of this. Y'all got this? All right. This is what they've been getting away with: to steal properties, to claim jurisdiction, etc. This is where they've claimed people who's either state wards or under state wardship under the 14th Amendment, etc. They don't go into in personam jurisdiction because it's already waived, because they're not part of the human family, therefore they're not obligated to this. They are by the law, but then they suspended it, didn't they? So therefore, all of this just falls. And then they claim to be white people and Americans, and the accusers never challenge that. So then they claim territorial jurisdiction by virtue of claiming to be Americans and no one dismissed them. Or claiming to be white people and no one challenged them. And then you let them proceed on your natural person, on a subject matter, on the territory where they have no delegated authority whatsoever. And they've been taking people's houses. Taking their cars and taking their properties and putting their property in storage, and then you have other people who are in the line bidding on these people's properties that have been stolen by the foreign corporate state and selling their property as a business. Some of them are even moors. Noah's part of the spoils. It's fine, brother.
You ran down three things. You said Article 3.
Yes.
You said Article 6.
And now I want a sister to read Act 1 of the Divine Constitutional Bylaws. Give her the mic, stay clear, stay distinct. Read slowly and clear.
Act 1.
Of what?
The Divine Constitution and Bylaws. Act 1. The Grand Sheik and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
Now they're supposed to know. Now in the divine warning by the prophet for the nations, what does he tell them to do to enforce that Constitution? How many Grand Sheiks in the Moorish Science Temple of America have any track record whatsoever enforcing that Constitution? Which is the highest level of civics. As a matter of fact, many of them, for the record, have been speaking against it. And speaking against anybody who promotes it. That's documented. They've been getting away with it, haven't they?
Yes.
See why they're upset with Taji for bringing up the consular court issue, and they didn't expect it to take root the way it's taken across this country. They're in breach. They're in breach. Extreme, treasonous breach. As long as the people weren't taught civics and jurisprudence, they've been sitting warm in seats and never suspected that these people were actually in breach. Because every 2 minutes they were saying no Raleigh was like, throwing rice at you at the wedding. You got married on a blind date, then you see the elephant over there, and I didn't know rice, whatever. It's a light thing, so they argue racism, colors, and you're diverted. They say no Raleigh every 2 minutes, and you never pay attention that they have not been carrying out his law. They keep honoring him and worshiping him and dismissing everything that he said about constitutional enforcement. And what has been happening to our people? They've been suffering. They've been losing houses, property, land, inheritances, estates, accounts, because they didn't carry out that law. See why I separated lesson book 14 in 89? So I already knew I'd catch these roaches. Go ahead.
I just wanted to read ex parte from the Black's Law 4th edition. Ex parte, on one side only.
One side only. They speaking on your behalf, making decisions in personam and subject matter and territorial, and all of these actions, including foreclosures, are coming from law offices with no seal of any court whatsoever, because it ain't a damn court. They're private human traffickers pretending to be Americans, claiming subject matter jurisdiction, in personam jurisdiction, territorial jurisdictions, and Moorish Americans with nationality cards. In their failure to enforce that Constitution has allowed this stuff to take root in our communities. They're in breach also. Because it was their responsibility to do what? What did Noble Raleigh say about that paper, Isaiah? What did Noble Raleigh say about that newspaper that he set up? Because he had the presses and everything. Get a mic.
In order to change the people, you must change the literature.
Not just that. He said about the press that our press, this is Noble Raleigh, our press is the most powerful weapon in the hands of our group today. I repeat. Noble Raleigh, you don't see them saying this about Noble Raleigh. Probably didn't do this, probably didn't make sense on Thursday, all that kind of stuff. They down with that all the time. You don't see them saying, Prophet Noble Raleigh said, our press is the most powerful weapon in the hands of our group today. Because without a press of our own, without papers of our own, we'll never be able to shovel ourselves out from under the lies that are heaped upon us by the day. That's Noble Raleigh. Where's the Prophet's newspaper for all these people that keep saying Noble Raleigh every 2 minutes? And about who's in the temple and who ain't in the temple. Do you see them? They've been collecting bus funds and all kinds of funds for decades. You see them trying to reinstate that Prophet's paper? This is why I say, don't get caught up in personalities. Don't get caught up in titles. Pay attention to what people actually do. Pay attention to their track records. How many of them have stepped out to assist these brothers and sisters in the communities when they've been attacked by those operating the corporate states? I know, silence, that's the problem. They're in breach. Did Act 1, read the Act 1 again. I want you to read that again and read it strong. That's right. Clear your throat. Let me clear my throat.
The Divine Constitution and Bylaws, Act 1. The Grand Sheik and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
What is known? That they have been doing anything but enforcing law. They not only that, many of them have said duality to teach law and civics. Literally. And many of them have attacked people and actually want to put charges on people for teaching civics and that Constitution. But they got them titles, and no one has challenged them.
Well,
Consular Court is pulling roaches out. That's why Drawley said the day is going to come. He said the temple's going to shrivel down to a few. He said they can slow me down, but they can't stop me. He said the time is coming when the people are going to come into this movement with their eyes wide open and going to carry out my law and sit the old Moors in the back of the room. That's a comfortable way of saying get rid of the traitors. The dead wood in caveat emptor. But I'm not focused on condemning anyone. I'm just exposing the law. But my concern is that many Moorish Americans have been suffering and very few people have stepped forth to try to assist them. And many who have come forth to try to assist them keep trying to dig in their pockets. I mean, the serpent's worthy of his hire. However, that's the limit. Meaning that if you're selling peanut butter sandwiches, you get paid 50 cents, you really getting serious. Especially if you ain't got jello. You know what I mean? Let's be serious. That's right. And people are often doing services for themselves and calling it national, which is false. Another falsehood. Again, which is why we teach civics and government structure. And it's unfortunate, but we're counting on you to use your intelligence and to get together with other people of intelligence and operate on principle, not on emotion. Don't like what I'm saying or not like what I'm saying. Measure it by law. Measure it by established principles, morals and ethics and written law. And stick with the law. Carry out the law. And for those, many of our people who are less than honorable, give the children a chance if you don't want it. Because we've sacrificed enough generations, I'm telling you. We've sacrificed, like crazy. And we've been quite irresponsible. And we need to admit it. And our people need to be, without knocking them, encouraged to stop trying to hide behind what they think religion is and start dealing with truth and reality and start addressing the problems of the human family honestly with cures and remedies. Beliefs fix nothing. Knowledge does. And so as the Septuaginta says, as the Bible says, as the Quran says, my people are destroyed by the day of lot for lack of knowledge. Quran says Allah will reject those who reject knowledge. These principles are universal in all the books. And we need to move towards getting our shovels, our imaginary shovels, and start digging up the history and digging our people out of these graves. Because while you digging, other people with turbans and feathers on too, along the Europeans has got shovels on the other side throwing dirt back on these people. So stay diligent in this noble cause of helping to uplift all humanity. Not because someone says so. Study the history and the law, and you will see the protocols are obvious. This is again why I presented some of these things, so it becomes obvious that there is no debate about consular court. And the fact that they're even debating, they just took off their mask. Thinking, you know, like sometimes you feel bad, you know, you go, and you go, oh, you know. They should have felt with that one.
Right. There you go. There you go.
That's how they court. They're so busy looking for an opportunity to attack me that they didn't pay attention to the details.
Wow.
You can't argue against Article 3. Whether it's someone who says they're a judge, whether someone says they're a jury,
All right.
whether someone says they're national,
All right.
whether someone says they're a citizen, whether someone's issuing any claim, etc. Dominic, can't you see where the consular court issue locks out ex parte actions? 90% of all legal processes at North America are ex parte. And what they've been doing, robbing people who didn't see through the veil. This is not complex. When you see the understanding or comprehension, just overall, in general, of what we just discussed, now you understand the writs that I've written over the years. The nature of all of them is with this consciousness in mind. Why is it that some people are so upset when conscious Moors challenge jurisdiction as if you don't have a right to? You have an obligation to. You have an obligation to challenge jurisdiction. Now, understand this and comprehend this. With the brand systems, or what they call the straw, it has no standing to challenge jurisdiction. That's why it was put in place. Now you understand why Drew always say, why did the European coin the term Negro, black, and colored? To steal your birthright. Why? Because it makes you subject to an ex parte action. Now, that's why he said also, if you doubt whether or not the program that I have for redemption of my people and citizens is correct, go to those who know law.
Yes, sir.
And what do these people keep saying? No drawly every 2 minutes, and they got all these titles. They're telling these people that drawly didn't teach law and civics, which is the heart of this movement. That's what I have to say for those who've been opposing consular court, distorting the argument, thinking they're getting away with it. They can only get away with it with people who don't read. Are we clear? So they think they're attacking Taj God. They're attacking the prophet and their own people. So the people's duty is to deal with traitors, isn't it? They're comfortable because what? They got a lot of people in their corner at the moment. But the momentum is swinging the other way. And caveat emptor is about to come down like Damocles' sword. You know, like they say, they come at you with a sword, they're going to jump on their own petard. Now, so you're dealing with in personam, subject matter, territorial, so that dealing with the living man and woman, and a corporate state can't make a charge against the living man. And this is a thing. Also, I'll just tell you, I know she doesn't mind. Sister D got a case dismissed on her that was operative against her. You know how simple it was? Let me tell you how simple it was, Jordan.
Come on with it.
When Sister D was in court, they was charging her with these charges, a whole series of charges. So D said, they said the state versus Delilah Pasaida, right? Delilah got up there. Our firm, you know the routine stuff. You know we don't swear. Right. And then they start talking trash. And blah, 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 blah. She did this, they took the sandwiches and turned them upside down on the street, and you know, all this stuff. Right. She said, "I object. Is your name the state?"
That's right.
Person playing the judge. Is your name the state? Well, no. Well, is there anyone who in this room, in this court, his name is the state? Because you won't get up and testify.
That's right.
So don't question my accusers, just threw it out. It was there. It's understanding this. It's understanding this. We don't need to keep making things complex. We need to comprehend principles. Over and over again, the issue of jurisdiction, which is extremely comprehensive, cannot be emphasized enough. Same principle you use, essentially in your argument. And a lot of times, if the arguments were made earlier, it wouldn't even go that far.
It's wrong.
But the deal of it is, if we collectively, as Moorish Americans, had enforced their Constitution, because our illustrious prophet Muhammad said, "Help me in my great missionary work."
Yes.
To bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution for the United States of America. I need the help of all true, as a qualification, American citizens in my great missionary work. If they had enforced that Constitution, what would them grand sheiks would have done? Activated the existing Article 3 consular court, diversity of nationality, proof of their nationality card. Now you understand when you always say that nationality card will change in your pocket.
Yeah.
When your comprehension of what it really is changes, it changes. It is you. They have waited for the master to appear, and they keep looking for the sun to rise. And they trip over the truth and keep walking. And the master is you.
Yes.
The cure is you.
Yeah.
Your comprehension, your what you would call understanding, meaning standing on the foundation of truth. And like you always says, you got the most powerful weapon in the world, the truth. Now, are there any other questions about jurisdiction? Because we want to be clear on this. We good? We good, y'all?
Good.
Now, with that concept and comprehension, go ahead. Give her a mic.
I just want to make sure
You got to speak a little louder, speak clear.
from my own understanding, regardless of the subject matter, like I said, whether it be contract or criminal.
All right, now, if there's a contract, first of all, there cannot be an ex parte action. The first thing that must be produced, and you have right to it in discovery, is the alleged contract. And the issuer of the contract, not a representative of someone else. Meaning that if I got a contract with you, right, and there's an issue before a tribunal, I don't want to talk to you, cousin. I don't want to talk to you, damn lawyer either. I'm talking to you. I'm going to question you. These are fundamental principles that we must maintain and restore. Failure to have done these things has cost us dearly. Are we clear? Exercising your right to face and question your accuser. And the corporate state can't accuse anyone. It's a fiction written on paper. So the state versus you is BS and ex parte. You don't let them get away with it in the first place. Are we clear? These, and another reason, which I think is already clear to you, why I'm emphasizing this, is because this must be exercised. It must become a part of your everyday thinking. Once you really comprehend this fundamental concept, the protocols are automatic. It's like common sense. Like, let me see. Let me get this together. I've been working for this for a minute, so give me a chance, y'all. Let me see. 1 and 1. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. I know y'all smell smoke, but let's hold on. 1 and 1. 2. Let me see. 2 and 2. Wait a minute. 4. Once you got that down, the other stuff falls in place. Are we clear? So once you're clear on this, an arraignment of jurisdiction is a necessary instrument to be introduced as an evidence in any and all cases concerning Moorish Americans. And it should be an issue from the temples, which are regencies, but we need not go into that already. This is why so many other orders were set up, like the Great Seal, Roundtable, Circle of Mothers and Sons, Moorish Honor Society, etc., to execute the law and the enforcement of the Constitution and all of Noble Raleigh's programs, not just part of it. Because many of them, I want you to look at this too. I want to show you something else that has allowed these ex parte actions. And I know you all saw this before, but I'm going to make this point again. Anyone of the sisters, you got your questionnaire? I want you to read the back of the questionnaire. I know that's good for you. No, you can't talk right now. I can see what you're looking at you. Don't give him that book, son.
Abundance child. Not walking.
It's like serious over there. Abundance in the house, y'all. Give her a hand, y'all. Abundance. We was trying to come to your spot last week. Was y'all close to something?
Never.
Yeah. Yeah.
10 o'clock
I want you to tell us the location of the address, because we was GPS and everything.
You've been there before too, so.
Yeah, but that's like 6-7 years ago, wasn't it? Yeah. Baby girl was little then. Yeah.
Sister got the 101, Todd.
All right, Islam, this is the read 101. Yes. Islam.
Our authority, State of Illinois, Cook County, Corporation Religious Affidavit of Organization, State of Illinois, County of Cook. 1928, August 1st p.m.
Hold on. 1928, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
August 1st.
1928, August 1st. Go ahead.
p.m. at 2:52. And recorded in book I, Noble Drew Ali, reporter, Moorish Temple of Science held at Chicago in the county of Cook.
All right, Moorish Temple of Science. All right, go ahead.
Held at Chicago in the county of Cook and state of Illinois on the 20th day of July.
All right, look at this, y'all. Pay attention to this. 20th day of July, 1928. All right, you got that? Go ahead.
Yep.
For that purpose, the following persons were appointed sheiks. According to the rule and usage of such Moorish temple of science, do solemnly swear that at a meeting of the members of Noble Jurali, Mealy L, Small Bay, Levet Bay, and Foreman Bay, the Moorish Science Temple of America, deriving its power and authority from the Great Quran of Muhammad, to proclamate the faith and extend the learning and truth of the great prophet of Ali in America, to appoint and consecrate missionaries of the prophet, and to establish the faith of Muhammad in America. And said Moorish Temple of Science adopted as its corporate name.
So the Moorish Temple of Science, hold on, adopted right as its corporate name So that means its corporate name is the following. What is the following? Was it? Say it.
The following Moorish Science Temple of
All right.
America.
All right. So you have the, and it's also now I want to point out something to you. How many of you have Noble Ali's death certificate? Y'all don't have it? Now, hold on, I want you to pay some attention. I want to show you something to pay attention to details.
Is that the Moorish literature?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Now, I want you to notice that the Moorish Temple of Science was registered as a civic organization. What date? Read it. Read it.
1925.
All right. So now, in 1913, Noble Ali founded the Old Canaanite Temple. Did he found the Moorish Science Temple of America in 1913, or did he found the Old Canaanite Temple in 1913?
Old Canaanite Temple.
When did the Moorish Science Temple corporate name exist and come into being?
1928.
And a religious affidavit was adopted, a religious organization, 1 year, and guess what day, the very next year, 29, that they assassinated Noble Ali? That same day. July the 20th. So that religious affidavit existed in this movement 1 year of the prophet's life. All the rest of his life of his work was mainly civic. And that was done because of infiltration and problems that he was having. And you know what a lot of Grand Sheiks do? They take this 20th day of July 1928 until his death, July the 20th, 1929, and cut out all the rest of his history as if it never existed. And they operate their temples on that religious affidavit as if it was from the beginning of 1913, lying on the prophet and lying on you. This is why so much confusion exists about this movement. Go ahead, good brother, read.
In the same temple, they pass out the Moorish literature, and what the sister was reading it says, we organized as the Moorish Science Temple of Science in the year 1925, and were legally incorporated as a civic organization under the laws of the state of Illinois, November 29, 1926.
And so you can see, that's teaching, but what is civics? It teaches government, doesn't it?
Islam.
Do you know Raleigh said, I'm keep some of these Europeans here long enough to teach you government? Why do they not emphasize that? They keep emphasizing that religious affidavit and sticking around it and avoiding everything else about what Noble Raleigh did. And Moors are losing their homes and their property because they have not been carrying out the law. And you'd be surprised how many Moorish Americans that come into the temples with this consciousness and then get attacked by these very same people that were put in power to make law and enforce law, and they do exactly not that. And half the people in the communities, because I've been getting this over years, because you already know one of the things that we always do with the Roundtable, one of the rules is sending people to the temple. You know how many people came back over the years, different times, and cussed me out for sending them to the temple? Actually was angry because of the clash that they ran into. This is only because I educated them first. You know, because once you educate people, they can't play these people. And it makes them angry because they can't do this. And people go, you know, they can't do that to them. And so they're angry. And a lot of times we teach people, they come in and they can't teach them anything because they're more advanced than most of these grand sheiks and sheikesses. And the truth of the matter is many of them are envious and jealous rather than taking the information and helping to develop. Because they definitely need to be doing schools, like the prophet said, you know. See, so they've been playing on this certificate, on this religious affidavit for the last year of the prophet's life, and keep emphasizing this and ignoring all the other work that he did as if it never existed. And as a matter of fact, some people have said to me, even recently, one of the brothers from Ecuador, of how when they went to the temple, because they came up, they wanted just to see, and how when they mentioned my name, that they started treating them not so friendly. You know what I mean? It's interesting. You know, because they was taking for granted that everything was open, you know, information was flowing, you know, and they expected that. And start finding they was being suppressed, you know, and they're expecting free flow of information. That's not what they got. You know, tighter than a sardine can with no can opener. You know. But I wanted you all to pay attention to that because that's very important, because it'll keep your concepts clear so that you don't get caught up in personalities. Also that you don't get trusting people just because they say grand sheik and grand sheikess. That don't mean a damn thing. Like the prophet said, Arabs are born, they're not made. And I say to you all, get used to that. Now more than ever. All right? You all get the point here? We could stretch this out, but you get the point here? Yeah. Now, where someone's looking at things from a scholarly point of view or historical point of view, the evidence does not support what they've been telling you. The evidence conflicts with what these people have been telling you about the Raleigh. And the interesting thing is, and this was said to me with a few people, how half of these people that claim to be grand sheiks and sheikas of the Moorish Science Temple of America, they didn't even know who they were until they heard them come out in videos and other formats attacking me. Before that, they didn't even hear about these people because they weren't even communicating with the public. Even the people right in their own communities. However, I'm only saying because I'm thick-skinned, so they can't get with me, you know, like that. I'm not impressed. You know, what the deal is, they're not the answer to these people. Once these people really understand what they've done to this movement, hiding behind Nobel saying Nobel every 2 minutes, and so like distract people, doesn't dawn on people that they're parroting to divert your attention from this. 1 year to the day is assassination. The 20th, they had the meeting because they had infiltrating, as a matter of fact, Raleigh said, forced to make changes. Forced to. That means it was an unwilling situation. They had to try to stabilize the movement. And like they like to do, because this is like what they like to do, they're keen on dates and transplanetary movements. 20th day, the next year, they assassinated. Day to day, 1 year. And these grand sheiks and sheiks is that like, that's the entire movement. See where the confusion comes in? And then when Great Seal or others, Roundtable, teach people about this real history and this real truth, then now they mad. And enforcing that Constitution and reactivating, because you don't need to establish, it is already the law of the land. It just hasn't been activated by them grand sheiks. And it hasn't been known by the members of the Moor Science Temple, because if they knew better, they wouldn't have let them get away with it. Well, Taji guy ain't let them get away with it. You understand? So it's your duty to enforce the law. So the deal of it is, the arrogance of jurisdiction is a standard of, write this down, you all, this cannot be emphasized enough. This is a standard in all your activities or interchanges with them. Why? That Constitution is an international document. Your nationality card is a diversity of nationality instrument. Anybody got a nationality card in their pocket? Go ahead, give the sister a mic. I want you to read your nationality card. Now notice this again, I'm getting ready to make a point, you all. Pay attention to this, because if it's known before the members of the Moor Science Temple of America, read, give it a mic. Give it a mic.
Yes, your temple card.
Read the front of the card, the front of the temple cards. The front of the temple card, read it. Islam
says, this is your nationality and identification card for the Moor Science Temple of America, and the birthrights for the Moorish Americans, etc. We honor all the divine prophets.
Name them slowly and then count them after you name them.
Jesus, 1. Muhammad, 2. Buddha, 3. And Confucius, 4.
And then, of course, Ali.
Yes.
Now, before we go any further, isn't that a diversity of nationalities?
Mm-hmm.
Is that nationality card a diversity of nationality instrument?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where's that issued at? From the Moor Science Temple of America? What is the platform internationally for such diversity to be dealt with in any controversy? It is a consular venue and a consular court. Woo! I just want you to notice that. Now, again, remind you off the top of your head, Act 1 of the Divine Constitutional Bylaws. Off the top of your head, anybody? Great.
Grand Sheiks and Assistant Grand Sheiks. Grand Sheiks and the Chairman is empowered to make law and enforce law with the assistance of the Prophet and the assistance of the Grand Body.
Yeah.
And the assistant Grand Sheik is to assistant Grand Sheik
in all affairs,
in all affairs. He must live the life of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
and it must be known by who?
The members of the grand body of the Moor Sanctum.
Now, we don't need them to confess it because most of them have not. But anyone who's observing and reporting on this movement and the problems in this movement, does the record show they have been enforcing that Constitution?
No.
Does the record show that they've been making and enforcing law?
No.
Does the record show that they've been coming to the aid of Moorish Americans in the communities who've been beset by the corporate operatives pretending to be government, stealing their properties, gentrifying the neighborhoods, etc.?
Hell no.
And when challenged, what do they resort to? Hiding behind that religious affidavit that last year the prophet's life and ignore all of the civic activity before them.
That's true.
I say we don't need to charge them, their actions have charged them. But they found time to criticize Brother Taj Tarik, didn't they? Huh? A lot of them supposed to have meetings with Brother Taj Tarik and ReAwakening too. We're supposed to do some videos to help clear up a lot of things in the public. And at the last minute, they reneged. Taj Tarik was there. Documentaries being made too. Taj Tarik was there. They didn't appear. But I didn't expect them to anyway. Any other questions, you all? I can tell that's good. You working in your phone, you all. Seriously. Like that. That's like serious stuff y'all got going on. So I want to make that point. See how obvious things are that if people don't bring it to your attention, a lot of times we get into conversations with people and it never dawns on them that the evidence is in their hands. That they get so used to parroting that they never pay attention to details. Well, you all pay attention to details. Because the scientist deals with what? Logistics. What is logistics? What is logistics? Logistics is the standard science used by all investigators, all scientists, all chemists, all astrologers, all mechanics, wherein and whereas they take a thing or object or composition of anything, break it down into its smallest components, study each component on its own right based on materials, tendencies, form, shape, density, etc., chemical makeup, and do that with all the individual component parts, and then reassemble them to have a greater understanding of the whole. Are we clear?
Clear.
That's what we did here. It's called logistical analysis.
Wow.
And it don't lie. So why are they upset with Taj Tarik? Because Taj Tarik pulled the wool off them, that's why. They take it personal. I don't know why they take it personal. It's not personal, right? You know? And we all supposed to be carrying out Raleigh's mission. And it's supposed to be known before the members.
Wow.
I mean, why are they offended? I think what happened is somebody stepped on that gown and found out that bride was ugly. That's right. That's what really was happening. You know, and I think over the years I've been, even though I knew it anyway, I've been so busy trying to get work done that most of the time I ignored it. But since they've been coming out in droves lately, I don't even try to defend myself with it. I'll just use the proper information and then let them deal with that. Now let them come back and condemn Taj Tarik if they want to. They might deal with people, they ain't got to deal with me. I got thick skin. Only time I really got upset was when they was messing with my sisters when she was in the temple. You know, I got a soft spot there. You know, brings tears and then it gets my Frankenstein up, which I have to always kind of suppress. You know. But outside of that, again, that's what Taj Tarik. because I can't be bought. That's number one.
Wow.
And I don't need the titles, and I don't need their permission, and I don't need their help or support. People around the world support my position.
Wow.
I'm sanctioned by the people and my mother, not them. So they can play their little attack games all they want to. I ain't impressed. Because I ain't in it for the game, I ain't in it for the title. I'm in it to get the work done. But I wanted to show that to you all, for those who have been hearing the crap here and there about the consular courts, criticisms and the misrepresentations, to expose what their real motive was. See, they ain't going into that detail. They're really trying to undermine the prophecy, but they're in a position that people trust them. It never dawns on them. See, but someone who deals with logistics don't deal with personality. They deal with evidence. That's how you find out who the traders are. And all you gotta do is go ahead a little bit and set little traps. And time passes and they doing their little work because they all see, because the Trojan horse thing. They keep thinking that the mask is still on. They don't understand. They doing this brainwash and stuff. Start seeing them shapeshifters and stuff. They showing themselves.
All right.
Now, there's no reason they're mad, because they recognize that they've been exposed. And so they're trying to divert so that people don't pay attention to the details. Anyway, is there anything else concerning the jurisdictional issue? All right. Now you understand sea jurisdiction, land jurisdiction, and air jurisdiction. That's another jurisdiction. Now keep in mind, whenever you're doing any instrumentalities to the operators of the corporate state, also within the instrument, also mention or even say land jurisdiction. Because remember, all of the 14th Amendment operations and the ex parte actions, they take you to the middle of the sea, or the middle of the ocean. And the sea is both of these. They take you to the sea. And that's the Vatican. And this is where they do the claim of the Unam Sanctam. The Unam Sanctam.
The Holy See.
Yeah.
Islam.
You understand?
Details.
Oh, that's what it is. And so the deal of this, understanding how the dark priesthood work, what I'm doing is showing you the deck. Basically, showing you the marked deck. Do with it what you will. But don't say you weren't told. Don't say you weren't told. And like Dwali said, don't get caught up. Well, I said it. Don't be caught up in personalities. Right? And when he said, be careful, more, some of your own brothers and sisters wearing turbans and fezzes will be trying to put you back into slavery. All you need to do is pay attention to these details and then look at what people's track records are, and you'll see just exactly who they are. You know how they say, them slippers and the pumpkin thing, and the Cinderella thing and all that stuff, the shoe fits, is what it is. And this is why he says, and keep in mind, between this day and the next year, he wrote that letter that he demanded to be read before every meeting that you read. They don't read that either, do they?
Nope.
Now you know why. Are we clear?
Wow.
However, my position is, and always has been, is to separate because a lot of people get misunderstanding, comprehension of sometimes the things that we say. The temples are right. The administrators, most of them are corrupt. Don't mix the two. And it's unfortunate because the Moor Science Temple of America has unfairly in many areas, and this has been my experience with people who are honest, not around them, but in private conversation, and some people are open condemning the temples. The temple didn't do this stuff.
All right.
The administrators did it. Separate them from the temple. Protect the prophet and the temple and the movement. The temples are right. The temple is right. They haven't been administered right. And so I'm showing you that. And I know, and I don't even have to go into it because it happens over and over and over again. Any of you that went into any of these temples and tried to introduce constitutional operations and civics, if you weren't attacked, hope you didn't hold your breath because they have to call the moor. Because if you went in most of these temples and you even mention that constitution, you'll see horns come out that you didn't know that going to. Wait a minute, is that an aura? Horizons? Serious. Them horns will come out. But that tells you a lot. That should tell you a lot. And this is another reason why, unfortunately, a lot of times Moorish Americans, when they're having problems in the communities, whereas the corporate state operators have not honored their obligation to a lot of these Moorish Americans because they themselves have not enforced the law even against their own. Therefore, it makes them non-credible. They don't know that that's true because they're obligated to enforce that constitution. It's not an option. It's not an option. Therefore, my central indirect appeal is to the new people who are coming in and the youth who are coming in to look at this Moorish Divine and National Movement with an objective eye, with a logistical analysis. Look at the facts, look at timelines, pay attention to timelines, pay attention to dates, pay attention to that everything that's issued in the Moorish Science Temple of America, which includes the divine warning, which includes the nationality card, which includes the divine constitutional bylaws, are international and diversity instruments. Diversity of nationality. I yield the floor. Are there any questions? Are there any questions, any statements? You good? Are we clear? All right. Are there any announcements that you want to make, Dr. Naila? How much you got left in there?
Money over there.
And that's how you slide that fork up the side of it and stuff. But anyway,
Are you finished?
no, I'm just speaking with you. Yeah, I'm finished.
You finished the class?
In general, but we can still go on, because I think they pretty much clear, comprehended, because that's what I wanted to get across is the issues of jurisdiction.
We do need to make this announcement, and that is that there is no class here next week.
Oh, yeah, all right.
That's important to know, especially since we have people like my sister here who travel all the way from Florida territory and others. So we'll make sure people don't make that trip because every week we have.
And we have Sister Nora and them are maintaining consular court in the Tampa Bay area. Yeah.
I think the notice, the information needs to get out, about the various and sundry areas, where they can get that assistance. Also, on the 22nd of August, we have am I right, Sarah? Date right? The date is right, 22nd, August 22nd. No? Okay, give me the right date.
What's that?
For etymology?
September.
Oh, September. Okay, September 22nd. We have registrations and the spaces are filling up for the etymology class from Brother Abdullah.
Oh,
And so we want to make sure that
is so
it's a
important.
full day workshop. It's 35 notes to come and to take the class here at House of ReAwakening Minds, and 25 online. And we do have people actually registering for the online. It'll be via Zoom, I believe. This will not be televised. You actually have to be registered for this, and so that's the 22nd of September. We still have time, but we'd like to have people. He's preparing. I believe there's probably handouts and material, so we need to make sure that we have all of that together for the participants.
I'll be back on. I'm gonna try to make it, but I'll be probably on the road on my way back from Illinois at that time. But I want to make this a mention to you all. Years ago, Brother Abdullah, myself, and a few other people went to a Temple University. Now, Professor Burton, one of the great and highly respected etymologists, was a professor at Temple University. And we went to his classes. I went to a few, and I was busy because I was doing so many other things. But Abdullah maintained and went to Temple to Dr. Burton's class. And he had an extensive library of etymologies from around the world. He's very noted. And he passed form. Now, with my experience in fundamental etymologies, etc., standard, for those of you who know Abdullah Mosley Bey, and one of the things I used to say at the time when we used to go to Temple University under Dr. Burton, for sure, I think of things logistically, whatever. And I used to always say he's playing it safe. That's because college tenure and all that kind of stuff. But for those of you who know or may not know, I'm just saying this, and not because Julie's my brother, my friend, and all that kind of stuff. I respect him as one of the best etymologists around, period. Because he's taken his learning and expanded it, and has really taken etymology as it should be, and expresses it to the people for what it should be, which shows that both the timeline and the historical realities that are embedded in etymological knowledge. Because it's not only the history, the true meanings, origin, and the morphology of words, it is also a tool that all serious anthropologists and scholars use for researching social adjustments and engineering. And most etymologists in colleges won't go there because they'd have to tell too many truths. And one thing I've always respected about Brother Abdullah, he'll step on them dinosaur eggs in a minute. You know what I mean? If it's for the truth, he'll step on them dinosaur eggs, and he's like that. And he's loyal to truth in relation to that. So I give him most honored respect. And that's one thing that I've always said about him since, we went to etymology classes, and Julie maintained it, and I got the highest respect for him for that. So it's not just because he comes here to the House of ReAwakening Minds. Very few people I will endorse because they usually end up disappointing you. But Abdullah stands on merit of his abilities, and I respect him for that. So I'm gonna give him a hand, y'all.
I did forget one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's more recent. Coming up sooner than September. It's on Sunday, August 12th. Last week we had our, I guess we call it our debut of reality, the talk show that I do called Reality. And on Sunday, the 12th of August, none other than Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey and I will be dialoguing here about religion and Unam Sanctam, and we had this really deep discussion, and so we decided to take it in front of an audience. And I know we have some scholars here, some religious scholars in the audience. Some of them are people that be like, really? So we want you to come out and be a part of that. It's Sunday, August 12th, 3 p.m. Right here. It will be, we want our live audience as well as those who will watch and be part of it via online. It's called Reality, and we'll be doing that at least once or twice a month. And also, so we want you to be part of that, as well as on the 18th of August, we have Brother Aaron L. coming back with Writ to Freedom Clinic. And we want, you all saw that last one. Yeah, it's live.
Yeah, I heard that was the bomb.
Right. So that's going to be right here on the 18th. That's Saturday at what time? We'll post the time. But Saturday the 18th, Writ to Freedom and Writing Clinic, and we on the 12th, Sunday, 3 p.m. Grand Sheik and I'll actually be in front of the camera instead of behind the camera, and Sister Tara will be directing and making sure I smile and things like that.
Director, producer.
Producer, director. I mean, it's funny though. Last time I did the show last week, every now and then she did like this, and I had to, and all of a sudden change the way my face looked, because I tend to go into a normal frown, but I'm not angry. But we'll be here next Sunday with you.
Yes.
And we'll be talking about, so those of you, you know who you are there on the right, especially that, you religious scholars, and you want to be a part of this dialogue, because we really want to go in. We really want to talk about what it is that we've been subjected to, and what is and what isn't.
What is and what it ain't.
Yes. So that is
logistical analysis.
Absolutely. So that's next Sunday, the 12th, at 3 p.m. right here. And we'd like to see this place packed out. And we don't want you to just watch us. We want you to participate.
Yes.
So he's not going to be lecturing like he is today at the board. We're going to be sitting.
Interfacing.
And we're going to be sipping some tea. That's right.
Boy, and boy, does she have a variety of tea. I mean, like
thousands of tea bags.
Yes.
We're actually going to have a tea fundraiser so that we can send you some tea bags and you can do tea with us. But right now, we're just going to be sipping some tea and spilling some tea as it relates to reality and religion and so forth. So that's next week, and then the following Saturday.
Talking over tea.
Technically speaking.
Anyway, thank you all for coming out to the House of ReAwakening Minds, and I trust that we've done some good. And I trust that everyone, I know most of you already know, but those who may have known a little less have a clearer understanding and comprehension of the importance of in-person jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, land jurisdiction, sea jurisdiction, air jurisdiction. All of it involves everything that you do every day in your everyday affairs. Whether you're traveling the streets, whether you're trading in commerce in any format, and particularly any and all judicial actions. Anyway, have a good night. Have a wonderful night. Thank Abundance for the great food that she always provides us. You got Beagle Festa tacos?
You're vegan, vegetarian, make sure you get some before you go.
All right, and glad to see the children too.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, peace. Thank you.